Hello, I'm Nora, and welcome back to Novels with Nora. As we are now halfway through the year, it is time for me to reflect on and check in with my reading goals I set for myself this year. So I set myself quite a few goals, and some of them were ambitious, some of them I knew I would get to, some of them were a stretch, but we are going to check in, see how we did, see how we are doing, and see what needs to improve. I have added some goals since I talked to you about my goals last, which was at the very beginning of the year. So I have a lot to go over today, and in planning for this video, I realized that this is actually going to be split into two different videos because, well, okay, here's the real tea. First, I had wanted to just include this in my quarterly wrap-up because the end of last quarter was also the halfway point of the year. However, I realized I set myself a lot of goals and I'm participating in a lot of reading challenges. So I was like, okay, I'll make this its own video. But one of the reading challenges that I joined in, it's quite lengthy and quite in-depth. And so I think I'm actually just going to split that into its own video because there's a lot to talk about there. So we'll get there. But first, let's just dive into all the goals I set for myself this year. Starting with my overall reading goal, of which I had set at 45 books. And this I have achieved. I've read 49 books so far this year, which is so exciting and very wonderful for me, knowing that I am going to achieve that and have the capability to double that. So I had set my goal at 45 because I always like to set my goal lower than what I think I can really do, because I don't want to set it too high and then have to like lower it down just because that doesn't feel good, you know? But in the past, I'd been able to get to around 40, 45 between there. And I was like, well, this year I am going to be at home most of the time because my grad program that I'm in is fully online. So I was like, I should have more time to read, hopefully. And also because I started my YouTube channel, which is all about reading, I was hoping that I'd, be reading more. So I set my goal at 45, but deep in my heart of hearts, I knew that I wanted to read 50 books. So now that I'm at 49, very excited. I'm going to hit that 50, especially because I'm like 30% into another book right now. So I will get to 50, which is very exciting. I have not read 50 books in a year since high school. I think I read so much in high school, but now that I was in college and now that I'm in grad school, I'm reading a little bit less, but thanks to this YouTube channel, I'm reading more than I have previously, but not since high school. We'll see if we can get around to beating my high school stats, but we'll have to see. But I think because we're already at 49, which rounding up, we're at 50, do we think that I can get to 100 by the end of the year? That would be a crazy goal, but I feel like I'm not gonna actually like set that anywhere like firm because I don't know if that's actually gonna happen because I don't think I've ever read 100 books in a year, but it would be really cool if it did happen. So we'll have to see on that one, but that is my overall reading goal for the year. My next goal was to read more of my owned books. And when I was putting this list together and like reflecting on my goals, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing great at this. And then I actually pulled up the numbers of how many owned books I've read. Not awful, but not great. So I have read 23 owned books and 26 unowned books. So I'm still reading a good number of things that I own, but I'm reading more things that I don't own. So I feel like this one's kind of a toss right now because yes, I'm reading a lot of things that I own, but I'm reading more things that I don't own. So I feel like we kind of landed firmly in the middle there because 23 is still really good. Like I'm very happy with that. I've just read more things that I don't own. This one's going to go into the category of things that I need to continue to improve upon in the second half of the year, so that hopefully by the end of the year, when we reflect on the goals throughout the whole year, the number of owned books will be higher than the number of unowned books. That is the ultimate goal. The next goal that I have achieved is to track my reading. This is something that I love doing because I love seeing all the stats. If you've seen any of my wrap-ups, specifically my quarterly wrap-ups, I love to put in the little pie charts of my different reading stats. So I love tracking my reading to then have these stats. And yeah, this I have done to an extreme, quite possibly in a way that is unsustainable for me, but we'll have to see because I currently track my reading on 2 spreadsheets, 3 apps, and 2 notebooks. So every single book that I read is getting tracked 7 separate times in 7 separate places. Does that feel extreme to you? Because it feels kind of extreme to me. Rating it out like that, I was like, oh, yeah, that is a bit much. But like I enjoy it. Like I have fun with it. I have 2 reading journals. One that's more just like a list of the books that I read so I can look back and be like, wow, look at all these books. And then this one that I've been playing with this whole time, which is more like artistic in a way. So like it, more like fun, journal-y-esque. And then I have my 2 spreadsheets that I use that's like how it compiles all the data. And then the 3 apps, which are like how I share my reviews and things. So it is a lot, but each of them serves a purpose and I enjoy each of them. So I feel like we're just going to continue with that because I'm having a great time. So why would I stop? Next goal I set for myself was to read 12 nonfiction, 1 a month. And we have been slacking on this. And by we, I mean me, because I have only read 5 nonfiction so far this year, which isn't bad because then I'm really only like 1.5 books behind. And that's not awful. However, I read 2 of those in 1 month. So technically I'm like 2.5 behind. Kind of. The math isn't really mathing here, but I wanted to read 1 a month and now we are in month 7 and I've only read 5 books. So I do want to improve upon that one. Also because I've been buying a lot of nonfiction because there's a lot of nonfiction that I'm really interested in. It's just, I know that it's a bit denser than fiction. And so sometimes it's just harder for me to be like, oh yeah, let me pick up a nonfiction, especially because I've been picking up kind of like chunkier, longer nonfictions. And so it's like, I know it's more of a commitment than reading like a 300-page like YA fantasy, you know, but I just need to commit to reading them, especially because I'm buying them because I'm interested in the topics that they're talking about. I just need to then sit down and actually commit to reading those things, especially because, like I've been saying, there are things that I'm really interested in. Like a lot of the nonfiction I own are things that I'm like chomping at the bit to read. It's just when I look at my shelves, it doesn't help that my nonfiction is on the very bottom shelf that you can't really see. And so when I'm looking at my shelves to pick something to read next, I'm like, oh, a fantasy, oh, sci-fi, or especially when I'm getting things from the library, they're usually like fantasy, sci-fi, literary fiction things. And so, especially now that I'm home, I'm utilizing my library a lot more, which means I'm checking out a lot more fiction. And so I'm just not prioritizing my nonfiction, which is also ties into why I'm not reading as many of my own books because I'm really leaning on my library right now, which I have no qualms with. I'm reading from my library. I love my library. I love supporting them. So I don't really have a problem with that. I just twofold here need to read more nonfiction and read more of the books that I actually own. So moving forward, I do just want to prioritize reading more nonfiction, especially because I feel like 1 a month isn't that bad. And so I set this goal for myself knowing that I could do this. I just need to like put my foot down and actually do it. Right. That's how a lot of these goals are. It's like, I know I could achieve them. I just need to maybe try a little bit harder, which is why I think it's good to have this like mid-year check-in and realize, okay, yes, I am getting close to achieving it, but if I just try like a little bit harder, I could achieve it. You know, a lot of my goals are like that, where it's just like, if I like seeing it now, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is like giving me, like reinvigorating me with my goals. Like, especially seeing how close I could come to reading 100 books this year. It makes me feel ravenous for a book, you know, because I'm like, oh, I could get to 100. Let me do everything I can to like set myself up for success to get there. So it's like, okay, as soon as I'm done filming, I will be reading so that I can meet this goal because I really want to do that for myself. That would be so fun. My next goal is one that I actually should have set higher. I've never tracked this before, so I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to shake out, but I wanted to read at least 12 sapphic books. I have already read 17, and that is excluding a few that just have like sapphic subplots that aren't like the main couple or the main plot of the novel. So I should have known to set this one higher because I pick up a lot of sapphic books. Like if the plot even just sounds like remotely interesting, but then I see sapphic, I'm in. So I should have known to set this one higher, especially because the page that I made for it in my journal, I clearly underestimated myself on this front because I did not leave enough space to adequately fill this in, because I do have a whole section, like this whole page is sapphic reads, but as you can see, the page is full. So I need to figure out, those journalers do like tip-ins where they like tape in another page that like flips. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. This is my nonfiction page. You see the difference? Yeah. So already read 17 sapphic books, and some of them are like my favorite books of the year. So I should have known to set this one higher because I read a lot of sapphic books, clearly. So I do want to continue with this, obviously, but I don't know that it's a goal I need to continue with. Like, I've achieved the goal, and I don't think I need to like up the number because this is something that I feel like I do already. I don't think I need to set a goal to try and do more of it because I'm already clearly doing a lot of it. You know, so something to ponder, because I'm not sure if I want to like up it and be like, I want to read 30 sapphic books, but I'm already halfway there, right? So then like setting it at 50, that feels a little too high. Because I also, especially with like putting it as sapphic books, I don't want to pick up books just because they are sapphic and then disregard things that I might be more interested in, you know? So a lot to think about with this one, but I think I'm just going to mark this goal as complete and move on. Like, I'll still track the sapphic books I'm reading, so we'll see at the end of the year how many I've read, especially because this is my first year tracking this, just having kind of like a baseline to go off of. I think that's what we'll do. Clearly, I'm reading a lot more than 12. So I think that this is a goal that I'm going to mark like fully as complete. Does not need to continue. I don't need to keep like trying to read more because I'm already going to be reading more. Like, looking at my TBR for the like rest of the year, it's a lot of sapphic book because that's what I'm interested in picking up. So I feel like I don't need to make it a goal to try and pick up more, because I'm already doing that. So I think we're just going to mark this one as complete and move on to the next goal. So the next 4-ish goals are all reading challenges that I've set for myself that I want to participate in throughout the year. So the first one is my page goal. This is something that I'd never set before, but when setting up my story graph for the year, when you put in the number of books you want to read, you can also put in like a page number goal. And so I was like, okay, 20,000 pages, let's go for it. Because like, again, I've never tracked this before, so I had no clue what my baseline was, or like, I had no clue. I was just putting in a number and seeing what was going to happen there. And I am happy to report that I have read 16,620 pages. That's 83% of my goal. I would say we're doing pretty good. And I do think we'll get over this one again by the end of the year. So that's really exciting, because I love having like stats like this. And so starting this one for the first time and then being able to like up it as the years go on, super exciting. I love adding new things to track into the mix of everything that I'm tracking. So this one is super fun. And it's also then interesting to see, because one of the spreadsheets that I do, it tells you how many pages you're reading per month. And it's interesting to see that even sometimes in the months where I'm reading less books, when they're thicker, it makes the page count obviously go up. So it's really fascinating to see that even though I'm technically reading less books in the month, which you would think equates to less pages, if I'm reading thicker books, so longer books with more pages, it's still really contributing. So it's also just a good way for me to be like, oh, well, I didn't read that much this month. Oh, but like my page goal is still being contributed to. So that's really helpful, because there was one month where I think I read only like 6 books, but it was still contending as one of like the higher months for page count, because I was reading like 400, 500 page books in that month. So it's just a way to really keep me motivated in reading and not feel as down about how many books I'm reading a month. And I will say, obviously, I don't need to feel bad over how many books I'm reading a month. I'm reading, and that's really all that matters. But especially because I track it in so many places, I want to see that number going up, because then I have like more stats to track, you know? And it's also just like more fun for me, and hopefully for you, when I'm reading more, because then there's more for me to talk about to you. So I just like to read more. I like to see myself reading a lot, because reading is like, it brings me so much joy. And so I like to see myself doing that a lot, you know? So the more I read in a month typically means the better the month was for me. So I like to have months where I'm reading a higher number of books, but being able to see, okay, just because I didn't read that much doesn't mean that the month was a wash. I was still reading a lot of pages, and that still kind of equates to the same thing for me. So the first actual like reading challenge I'm participating in year long is buzzwordathon. So every month there is a title prompt and a cover prompt. So the title prompt, you just have to read a book that has that word, phrase, punctuation in the title, and then the cover prompt, you just have to read a book that has that item on the cover. And so far, glad to say that I have read a book for each prompt every month. So I have read so far 12 books for this challenge, 2 each month, 1 for the cover and 1 for the title prompt. So I'm really excited with this, because buzzwordathon is something that I have attempted to participate in I think the past 3 years, and just have never really stuck to, mainly because I was trying like so hard to just like find any book that I could that fit in that prompt, where now I'm really trying to find things that are on my shelves, things that I'm already interested in to fit that prompt. Also, I will say with Storygraph, it is so wonderful that when they create the like reading challenge in Storygraph, people can add their own like books into it, so then you can see every book that everyone else has added, and then you can get inspiration from there and even recommendations. And I love this feature of Storygraph. It is so wonderful. I scroll through here sometimes just like for fun to get recommendations for things, because people are reading so many different things, especially like for a challenge where you would think that a lot of people are reading the same thing. No, there's a lot of different books out there, and seeing them all combined in one place like that, easy to scroll through, and you know that they're all gonna fit for the challenge, really wonderful. And I really love this feature of Storygraph. So if you're not using this, I think you should, because it's really, really wonderful. So buzzwordathon is going very well for me. I think that we'll probably be able to finish this one out, especially because I'm already halfway through. I'm not stopping now, you know, especially because I've been doing monthly buzzwordathon vlogs here on my channel. So I've been really having a good time with those and like talking about my thoughts on those books, because for the most part, I've really been loving the books I'm reading for this challenge. So, and if I'm not loving them, I'm at least getting them off my shelves. So I would say all in all, I'm really having a very fun time with this. It's also just fun because it's hosted by Books and Lala, Kayla here on BookTube, and she's one of my favorite booktubers. So getting to participate in a challenge hosted by her is really fun. So I'm really just having a very good time with this, especially because I've tried in the past to do it and I just never really stuck with it. So now I'm like, this year we're sticking with it and I'm having such a fun time. So yeah, I'm just having a really, really great time with this one. Next is another challenge that I had attempted to participate in years past and never really made any progress on, and that is the alphabet reading challenge, where you read a book with a title that corresponds with every letter of the alphabet. And this one is obviously difficult in some ways and really easy in others, because some letters you fly through them. You read like 17 books that all have the same letter, that like they start with the same letter, and then there's like X, Y, and Z that you really struggle to find something for. And it's another one of those things where it's like, I don't want to read it just because it fits that prompt, but finding books that I do want to read that fit the prompt and that letter, really wonderful. So I am actually doing really great with this challenge so far, especially because I've read 49 books. So I've read 49 books and there's only 26 letters in the alphabet. So, I mean, I could have already finished it. But again, those like trickier letters are kind of tripping me up. But I have read 19 of the 26 letters so far. So I'm really happy with that because it's 73% of the challenge completed, and I have something lined up for each of the other letters. So I have 7 letters left and I have something planned for each of these 7 letters. For some, I'm like, yes, that's what I'm gonna read, and some I'm not entirely sure, so I'm gonna go through the list and read to you what I have. So F is my first letter, and for that I'm going to be reading Flower Heart because that's in my Reader on Haul that I really need to get back to because I have not been doing super great with that, but I will be reading that. And then for J, I have The Jasmine Throne, which is like a high fantasy that I've had for a long time and really want to get to, which is also a sapphic book, so it'll also contribute to that. And then for Q, this is one that I have 2 options put in here, but I'm not really locked onto either of them. So if you have any recommendations for books that start with Q, would really love them, because I have The Queens of Innis Lear and then The Queen of Hearts, which both are things that I'm interested in, but I feel like there's probably something that I'm more interested in than either of those 2. And then R, I have 3 options: Road of the Lost, which is in my Reader on Haul challenge, Reverence, which is like a Soviet ballerina sapphic romance, and then Ring Shout. All 3 that I want to read, and we'll just see which one I get to first that ends up taking that spot. And then for X, not locked into this one, but I have like an X-Men book. It's kind of like a novelization of the comic books, and so I'm really interested in reading that, but it is thick. I think it's like 800, 900 pages, and so I don't know that I'm gonna get to that this year. But also finding a book with title starts with X, very difficult. So we'll see if I even can find anything else for that, but again, if you have recommendations, I will take them. And then Y, I have again 3 options, but I'm not locked into any of them. There's Yours for the Taking, Youth Juice, and The Yellow Wallpaper. Again, all 3 things that I want to read, but I don't know that I'm in love with any of those options, you know? And then finally Z, which I thought would be the hardest, but thank you Olivia Dade for releasing Zom Romcom later this year, because that fits perfectly, and it's something I'm really looking forward to reading because it's zombies but in a rom-com format. Who would have thought? So really actually looking forward to reading that one, and I thought Z for sure would be the hardest, but I'm now realizing that it's X. In looking, even like going through the Storygraph page for it, there's not that many options, and a lot of people are just putting in books that like have X somewhere in the title, which makes complete sense because finding a book that even starts with X, but then also that you're interested in, not super easy. So if you have any recommendations for any of these letters, I would love to hear them because that's what I have. Those are my options, so I would love to hear more if you have them, but I'm just happy that I have something for all of the letters, so it's not like I'm like, I have no clue. I do have some clue, and I would say that counts as a win. Also, because I've read most of the alphabet so far, I'd say we're doing really well. The final reading challenge I have decided to participate in is the one that I think needs its own video, because that is the r/fantasy bingo board for this year, because it goes April of 2025 through April of 2026. So it's a full year, but like going into next year. And this one has 24 prompts because it's a bingo board, and I am trying to, like, you try and do all of them. Like getting a bingo is exciting, but you want to do all of the prompts. And I am only 29% through this one. I have only done 7 of the 24 prompts. And a lot of this one is because like these prompts are like quite in depth and quite particular, because there's like the prompt, but then there's a hard mode that adds like a harder layer to the prompt. But like I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm like really enjoying it. I really like watching other people's content on it. So I do think I'm gonna make a separate video on this one, so where I can talk about what I've read so far and what I plan to read for each prompt, because I really like seeing what other people are reading and getting recommendations from them. So I would love to add to that conversation, especially because this is my first year doing it. I'd like to have that documented, I think. So I do think that I am going to make a separate video for that, just because like there's a lot to talk through, especially because I have multiple options for each square. So I could put it here, but it would be like an extra like 20-minute chunk just talking about this challenge and then talking about all the books I want to read. So it is going to be its own video, but just know I've read 7 of the 24 prompts, which means I'm 29% through, which isn't great, but isn't awful, especially because it goes into April of next year. I have a little bit of extra time for this. So keep your eye out for that video, because I'm really excited for that, especially because there's some prompts that I would like some community feedback of, like if there's books other people know of that would fit for a prompt that I'm just not familiar with, that I would love to know about. But this is again why I love that story graph feature, because there's just something from like, I have never heard of a book that would fit this prompt. Because like there's one prompt that is like pirates, but not seafaring pirates. Like I don't even know how you would like begin to search for a book like that, but like having that feature on Storygraph is so wonderful, because you can see what other people are putting in for their own challenge, and then you might find a recommendation in there. So even if you're not planning on participating in a challenge, if there's a prompt where you're like, oh, that sounds interesting, go look at the Storygraph page, because I'll have it linked, and you can just get recommendations. I do really love this feature of Storygraph though, so highly recommend that. So those are all of the goals I set for myself this year for my reading, and also all of the reading challenges I'm participating in. And I would say, well, yes, there are some things that I definitely need to improve upon. There's a lot of things that I've done really well so far, and I'm having such a great reading year, really like achieving all of my goals besides maybe the nonfiction. But I mean, I feel like if you're setting goals that you are achieving like to completion by the middle of the year, then I feel like you're not really setting strong goals. Right? Now, like the sapphic one, I should have known to set that one higher, but also this is my first year tracking it, so I didn't really know. While it's exciting to have achieved some of these goals already by the midway point of the year, it just means that I need to up my goals and make them a little bit more challenging for myself, because the whole point of a goal is to like try and achieve something. And I feel like if I'm setting a goal of something that I know I'm going to achieve, then is it really a goal, or is it just something that I'm going to do? Right. Everyone that I know who's gone to college had to take one of those like first year experience courses where they teach you about SMART goals. We can never escape the SMART goals, because that's how I feel setting these reading goals. So like there's some things that I'm going to like up my goal. Like I'm going to change my reading goal to probably to 60 books, just because I've met the 45 that I set. And I think that when you're setting goals, you really have to think about like, what can you achieve versus what do you want to achieve, you know? I really wanted to get to 50, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to, so I set it at 45, which totally valid, and that's like my favorite way of setting goals. But now I get to up my goal and push myself even a little bit harder. So really excited about that. And so I love doing a little goal check-in. I think it's important to do them monthly, but also looking overall at all of my goals for the whole year and seeing how well I'm doing is like very motivating to then keep going throughout the rest of the year, because sometimes you get to the halfway point of the year, especially like in the like heat of summer, you're like, no, I'm not doing it. But then seeing how well I'm doing so far, it's like, I want to keep doing that. So this was a really fun little activity for me. I hope that you learned about my reading goals and maybe found a challenge or something you want to participate in. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you have any recommendations for any of the letters in my alphabet challenge, because I really need help with some of them. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video soon. Bye.